Closed captioning sponsored by Amy Swain Hearing Center.
Be sure to thank the following businesses for making this.
I'm the planner of the Stance Act, and the city has retained us to help prepare the comprehensive plan. I'm here with my colleague Lauren Walter, who has had a big hand in preparing this. And I think many of you know Greg Kruschke, city planner, and Ashley Zeidman, who stepped out, but she's new city planner in the city. So what I want to do here is just briefly go through this presentation of what this draft comprehensive plan is all about. And what is the comp plan? It's a general guidebook looking ahead 20 and 30 years. We're calling this Imagine Owatonna 2050. And we've been about this for several months now, compiling background information, talking with different groups in the community. We've had, Lauren, how many? 7 different focus groups that we've talked
Yeah, I think that's right.
So we've tried to find groups in the community, a group of senior citizens, a group of nonprofits, talking with the Chamber of Commerce, talking with a Hispanic focus group, a Somali focus group. We talked with high school students. So we've really tried to reach out and find different constituencies in the community. And that's been a big part of what's shaped some of the ideas you see here. But we're here, and this is a draft plan. So nothing's set in stone, but it's a draft of how we see this comprehensive plan coming together. And it's divided into chapters or elements: land use and housing, parks and trails, economic development, transportation, sustainability and resilience, and utilities. And what this presentation is follows closely the board if you've had a chance to look at that. But it starts with a vision, and I won't read all this, but we're looking ahead 20, 25 years. What will Owatonna be about? So this is a statement that hopefully reflects what Owatonna is today, with opportunity for all and great quality of life, but also that in 25 years that we would continue with that. But what will it take to continue that quality of life? Well, there's a set of core values, again, that we've gleaned from talking with others. I have to say, I'm the outside consultant from out of town. This isn't my plan, this is your plan. But we've put it together based on what we've heard from the community and information that we gathered and analyzed. So a community of opportunity, both traditional and progressive, historic and new opportunities, helping both residences and businesses, and passionate as a person to live, work, and play. So I'm not going to read all this, but on these boards there's trends that we've seen in land use and housing. And so this is one of the more important chapters, or certainly one of the key chapters in shaping the future city. So we talk about various land uses: residential, low density, medium density, high density, commercial, industrial, parks and open space, institutional uses like government, schools, churches, etc. And looking for ways of what should we anticipate as the city grows. It will be redeveloped in some of the areas of the existing city, but of course we'll grow with the edges as well. And sort of the poster for the comprehensive plan is the land use plan. By no means the only or most important, but it certainly is one element that gets a lot of attention. So this is the whole city of Owatonna, and the future land use plan is what's anticipated to be developed in the future. In many places, it reflects what's there today on the ground, because frankly, with a planning effort like this, 80 or 90% of the city is going to stay exactly the same as it has been and continue on, but it's going to be tweaked at the edges and in certain areas. But these colors represent what's pretty standard in planning. Yellow is residential, orange is medium and high density residential, red is commercial, the purple is what we call a transitional kind of commercial industrial mix. Deep purple is industrial, lighter blue, that public or institutional. here, but mostly commercial, with some of the higher density housing around it, and this transitional industrial north of downtown. And as you cross the river on the west side, of course, you have a large concentration of commercial around the interchanges, and then the industrial area and future industrial area. Whereas the east side of town, largely residential, with some smaller areas of commercial. But this general pattern is what is established in the future land use plan. But we've identified a few key areas that we think deserve more attention. And one of these focus areas is the Bridge Street corridor. So from downtown up the river, all the way out west to the freeway interchange, and west out to 24th Avenue Northwest. So, what should this corridor be? And so we're suggesting that we maybe expand some of the commercial, as that's been the trend in recent years, but still hang on to some of the residential that gives it that character. There's an area north of downtown, so here's Rose Street, here's Front Street, and as we go north between Elm and Cedar and North Oak, there's this area that's kind of older industrial, and we're saying that could be a transition to become more commercial and hopefully see some redevelopment and newer things happening to kind of clean up the area and make it more of a transition from downtown. We've also suggested 4 areas in the plan that we're calling mixed-use nodes. And a node, of course, is a kind of a corner or a center of what we call mixed use. And by that we mean it might have a core of neighborhood commercial uses, the coffee shop, the clinic, maybe the restaurant, some other kind of local hair salon, those kinds of things that would serve the neighborhood. And this is based on what we heard from the community in some of these early discussions, that they would love to have more areas that they could walk to instead of having to drive to all their destinations. And this map shows those 4 areas that we're suggesting, but it's overlaid on a map from the Walk Score website. If you've never heard of Walk Score, it's an online tool that takes all this information from Google Maps and it can see where the residential areas are, where these commercial areas are, like the restaurants and the bank and the clinic and the hair salons and the coffee shop, et cetera, et cetera. And then it analyzes it and it says, where are areas where people could walk from where they live to these destinations? And if there is an easy walk to those destinations, it gets a green color. And if it's a little more, it's yellow to orange, and if you can't walk there, you got to get in your car for just about everything, then it reverts to gray. So you can see the existing part of Owatonna, obviously, the center of town and downtown, easy to walk to many things. There's a couple of areas north and south where that exists, and generally not other places. But what we heard from people, especially on the east side, is, boy, we wish we had that kind of thing. So we've suggested that with 4 nodes here in the plan. And looking closer at them, the first one here, this is in kind of the northeast corner on 26th by Hemlock. And there was this large residential development proposed there. It's gone away, maybe temporarily, we don't know. But in that area, there could be this kind of mixed use node where you have a concentration of some high-intensity uses and transition to high and medium-density residential, and then to lower-density single-family residential. And this is based on the idea that people will walk a quarter mile, maybe as much as a half a mile, to get to those destinations. And that's what these white dashed lines are, a quarter mile and a half a mile. But in order to support that kind of neighborhood destination with the coffee shop, the clinic, the other kind of thing, you have to have a certain critical mass of people. You can't have just a few hundred people and expect to support the business. You need to really have a critical mass that's much larger than that within a close area, which is why you need the higher density. And so right now on the city's land use plan, these areas are largely just blanketed with single-family neighborhoods. And that single-family land use will not be able to support this kind of development to get neighborhood destinations that people could walk to. But if you put it on the plan and say, you know what, we're going to encourage nodes of a higher density mixed use, then it could happen. So that's one area. A second area is on Rose Street and at the intersection with the future arterial corridor that's shown on the county's plan. And this, I know, is a corridor that is controversial. It's gotten a lot of attention. We don't know if it's going to be exactly here or whether it might be located some other place. And don't shoot the messenger. We're just putting it in because it's on the county's plan. And we're showing that wherever that happens, we think it makes sense at the crossroads of two to have that kind of mixed-use node at the east edge of the city. So if it's here or if it's someplace else, we think it would make sense in some fashion. And these land use diagrams here are just very generalized and cartoonish. There's no specific plans that have been proposed. We're simply putting it on the map to say, hey, this is an idea that could encourage the kind of thing that we heard about in these focus group sessions and in these discussions. A third area is down in the southeast corner by the new high school, which makes sense that here's a major community institution. There's going to be a lot of people visiting there. We think there's going to be a lot of people who will want to live close to that. So it makes sense to have a concentrated area of development with some commercial, higher density residential, and other neighborhoods in that area. Exactly what it will look like, can't say, but we think that some kind of mixed use mode in that area makes sense. In all of these, we're showing a neighborhood park, or perhaps a park that's larger, that would support these areas. A fourth one is in the northwest part of the city, up here north of Walmart, where there already is some neighborhood of commercial, but we think it makes sense to have a neighborhood to establish larger residential presence and that kind of mixed-use node instead of having it all commercial between the interchanges. We think it could be a successful idea, and again, would create that kind of environment where people might be able to walk to these uses. So the idea of mixed-use nodes is part of this. And just as examples, I pulled some from the Twin Cities area where this has been done with new development. Obviously, in older parts of cities in Owatonna, in Rochester, and Cato, and the cities, many places, the older neighborhoods have lots of these where they've got corner neighborhood development you can walk to. Trying to develop it with new development is a different kind of a challenge, but it's been done just as a handful of examples. The village and the heights they developed in the last 10 years with this kind of new denser node of development. In Brooklyn Park, Village Creek, at Zane Brooklyn Boulevard, same kind of thing. It's happening. It's been developed slowly over the last 10 or 15 years. In St. Paul, here's an example of kind of a mix. Here on this side, these are older buildings, grocery store apartments, the post office, a restaurant, and a church. And then on the other side, these are two brand new buildings in the last 5 to 10 years that are apartments and a bank. So it reinforces that kind of a neighborhood building that's a very, very walkable place. In each of these chapters, we have goals, and I'm not going to read these, but you can see that we're trying to tease out what are the key things that we want to try and accomplish. And for land use, we want to try and address some of these issues that I've mentioned with mixed use, but also emphasize the downtown. It's so important. Emphasize housing in these communities with these land use goals. Parks and trails is one of the key elements that we heard a lot about in our conversations with people. They love the parks and trails and the woods and the lake and the river and the creeks, and having those kinds of connections between them has become increasingly important. It's not just about going to a park as a destination. It's about being between the parking through the city to these various destinations and to some other place. So building on that system is very important, and we're encouraging that with this plan. So there's maps in here showing where we're suggesting new parks to be located. And this is not just because it's a nice, fun and relaxing thing to do, but because it is essential to people's health. And Blue Cross Blue Shield, one of the largest providers of health insurance in the state, has done research. They want to find out what are the things that really contribute to people's health. And they developed a series of about a dozen criteria that said we can show with scientific studies that if these things are present, that people's health in that area will be improved. One of those was if you live within half a mile of an active park, you will be healthier on average than if you don't, if you live further than that. So there it is. Let's try and provide that kind of active park system within that half mile of every neighborhood in Owatonna. Trail connections too, not just internally to the various parks and destinations in Owatonna, but to areas farther in the region. And so there's search corridors for the trail system as well. There's goals, again, for the whole park and trail system. And there is, I should mention, that this and other elements of the plan, there have been separate studies already done a year or 2 or 3 years ago. So we haven't reinvented them and incorporated that into this comprehensive plan. We have a great parks plan, and so we've incorporated many of those goals and ideas into this plan. Economic development is important, and these things all work together. That you have a robust and diverse economy in Owatonna. You're really the envy of many cities your size. You want to continue with that success and build on it. And what does that involve? It involves having a good workforce, having good housing, having good schools, having a good park and trail system. So the park and trail system is not just a frill, it's beautiful for the community. It's absolutely a piece of the economic engine that supports your community, as well as housing options. That what we heard over and over again in various conversations was to be able to have a variety of housing that will serve the entire population of the community. And some of those options are missing. And it hurts the economy, not just those people individually. So economic development. And if I don't mention it's in one of these goals about emphasizing downtown. Downtown is the heart of the community. It's a gorgeous place. I know there's been investment in it in recent years. Keep that up. Emphasize activity and businesses and living downtown and connecting to downtown, and it can continue to serve as the heart of the community. So there's goals for economic development. Transportation is another one of those key basic elements, and we've again taken from the transportation plan, both from the city's own plan that they did a few years ago and the county plan that shows this east side connector. But it's not just about those major roadways, but also making sure that the smaller roadways continue to be connected, maintained, and provide for not just vehicles, not just cars, but for trucks and for bikes and for pedestrians. So there are transportation goals. Sustainability and resilience is another key chapter in the plan. We want to make sure that what happens here this year and next year and the next 20 years can leave our children and grandchildren a community that can thrive. And so the whole notion of sustainability and resilience has grown in the last several years with energy, with handling stormwater, with the natural environment, with the basic land use policy. So basic land use policies like those mixed-use nodes, if we can encourage more walking and biking to these destinations, we reduce car trips, which reduces putting those movements into the air, and it becomes a more sustainable cycle. So these elements are intertwined with each other. roads and providing sewer and water, electricity and gas are kept up. And you have good work by the Public Works Department here. It's incorporated into the plan. We didn't reinvent the wheel here, but we're making sure that it is in there because that's an important part to make sure that the things that are largely underground under the streets continue to function and provide those services for us. So that's a very brief look at this draft plan. It's online. If you've got one of these little cards, there's a QR code and below the city's website that you can find this whole plan. But it's summarized here on these boards. With that, that's the brief presentation. Are there any questions right away? We can certainly talk at the boards if you have specific questions, but maybe there's a few questions here. Yes?
So with the East Side Corridor, one of the things that people on the east side of town asked for was like your grocery stores and your gas stations. Without those, you can't even travel the East Side Corridor without going across town. Where do those fit in the picture?
Well, I think you're right that would be one of the things that those grocery stores and gas stations and those destinations can't exist without the traffic and customers to serve them. So if those are to be provided, then you've got to have what the industry calls rooftops. You've got to have people, the customers, close by to serve them, as well as just pass-through traffic. Different businesses rely on the immediate neighborhood or the community and region, or just pass-through traffic. But certainly there is a link between transportation and land use. So if you want to have those kinds of local neighborhood businesses, then you have to have the land use and development to support it. Is that what you're getting at? Or?
So are they not part of this plan?
Well,
or are they the mixed residential use, or?
Yeah, well, this plan is not going to identify specific uses. This plan does not say put a grocery store here, a gas station here, a restaurant here. It would lump those into the category of commercial land use. So the commercial land use category is intended to include grocery stores and retail stores and coffee shops and hair salons and all of that. So when you see red on the map, that means that kind of use. Or these mixed use nodes, that's the pink, that would assume that you might have the coffee shop and the hair salon and the little office underneath or next to some apartments or housing. That's what that means. So.
But that would not include your grocery stores and your gas stations?
Oh, it could, yes, absolutely, yeah. And so again, this plan is high level, generalized. The land use plan has these general categories, commercial, various kinds of residential, industrial, parks and trails, etc. But not specific uses.
Right.
It doesn't say grocery store or hotel restaurant.
But mixed residential could include your gas station?
It could. It could. Gas stations generally want to have very high traffic corridors. And so neighborhood commercial, but some of these might attract that, some maybe not. Is there
I live on the east side, so if you're going to utilize the east side corridor, the nearest gas station is 3 miles back into town.
Oh, yeah.
So it kind of defeats the purpose if you're going to build an east side corridor with absolutely nothing out there to even facilitate driving on it.
Those two are connected, that there's, do you build it and then they will come? Because the development can't be there if there aren't roadways to get to it. And likewise, the roadways would serve people. So you'd have developments and roadways, they would work together. Yeah. Other questions, comments? Yeah.
So you talked about having mixed use. So when you already have that area already full with residential housing, how do you bring mixed use into an area that doesn't have any spaces?
Right. The intent of these, let me go back to these, is that we're suggesting it on the areas that are currently vacant. So in this area, here we are at 26th and Hemlock. Here's existing housing, existing neighborhood, and we're suggesting that in this vacant area that it might be future development. But if we do have that kind of a high-intensity node here, you can see with these circles that it could serve the existing neighborhood. So it's kind of half and half new, half old, and it could make for a very robust neighborhood node. The same with this one at Rose Street, where you've got an existing neighborhood in that northwest quadrant, and if this roadway happens to be here, then the other 3/4 of this are currently, mostly undeveloped farmland, and so they would develop. But you can see again those white dashed lines would go to the existing neighborhood, and you could walk to that new whatever it is coffee shop.
I get it now, because that yellow over there is the development that is proposed.
Oh, that was proposed. Greg, what was the name of that?
I know.
Yeah.
It's the one.
Middle Springs Estates.
Middle Springs
It's
Estates.
the candy company land is what we're talking about.
Yes, right. Yeah. That was proposed. So, we showed it just for context. Even
That's
though
okay, I got it.
It's not,
I was just trying to figure out which one not in place, so we're not talking about taking down current houses.
No.
We're talking about taking the farmland that's surrounding and
That's the
something
idea.
with that in the areas that are
Yeah.
edges of town,
Yeah.
not too much into town.
Right. Well, I mean, there may be redevelopment in town, and we haven't identified, specific properties or anything. I mean, that's a kind of a natural process that, a community turns over with old things and redevelops and reused, and so that will continue to happen. Other questions?
Yeah, I haven't read through all of your information completely, but I'm looking at the aging population. As I care for seniors in our community, and we know every day that many more turn 65 every day, especially we have a disproportionate number of elders. So what discussion or thoughts or philosophy is in our foundation vision goals and plan elements, I guess?
It's part of it, and it's within the housing goals and the land use goals to support those housing options, the variety of housing options. And there is an analysis in the background report that talks about, what's the age demographic. And it's an issue in Owatonna to provide that. Again, this land use plan identifies areas for residential of various densities that could and should include senior housing. We haven't said put senior housing here and here and here, but provide places where that would make sense. And actually, connected to this mixed use conversation, it makes sense to have some part of senior housing be in that higher density, close to services, so that you can be close to a coffee shop, a library, a clinic, a hair salon, whatever, instead of being removed and then you have to hop on the bus or have your, daughter give you a ride to everything. So, yes, that's definitely part of the mix and something that, we would urge the community to keep thinking about trying to provide senior housing everywhere. We're all getting there 1 year at a time. And so, it's a continuing need.
So I have a question. What's this future school on Rose Street?
That is land that is owned by the school district that they have for I don't know how long, and
They've had it for a while. It's just school district owned land.
Okay.
It says future school, but it's just owned. They own like 30 acres.
For school before it.
I was just wondering if you just built the one and that's why I was like, what's that?
So, and that's common, that school districts here in every community I know of, they buy land in anticipation of, it's cheaper to buy it with today's dollars than with dollars 30 years from now, if they can even get it. So, it's not uncommon to see that kind of land held.
Following along with the seniors, we don't have really good transportation in town, public transportation in town. We don't have good public transportation. I did get to see, is there any goals for 2050 to have a public transportation system of some sort?
Well, it's mentioned, and it's an issue that we heard about in these conversations. There are many people. And Owatonna is the size of a community where it's a challenge to have a public system. Rochester can have one. In the cities, very robust. It's hard because it's very expensive to provide frequency and access and have a good system. I think there are creative solutions out there, and smart people than me have delved into this, and I would urge you to keep looking and figure it out. That it is a need. It is a need.
Owatonna is going to continue to grow because we are unique in this state, and I feel that we're going to have more people. And if you continue to, talk about build, they will come. You provide housing, they're going to come. And so the need for transportation will continue to rise as our population rises. So I just wanted to see that there is some sort of thought or planning ahead to it, because the clinic is on the 26th Street. Now we'll have Homestead right next to River Spring Brewery with the apartments up above. I'm not saying that is not a good idea. I'm just saying that that isn't, we aren't going to be able to put a clinic on every corner either. So that's what I'm more concerned about, is the public transportation part. But as long as I know you got it on your radar.
It's on the radar. And again, this is a high-level plan. We don't have a plan all worked out that says, here's exactly how you provide transit to all parts of the community, and here's how it's paid for. Absolutely not. But it's a goal in the plan because it is a need.
Along those same lines, is there a plan to make it easier to not use a vehicle to get to existing businesses, to like the downtown area? Because walking and biking is not really feasible today.
Yeah, well, and I guess it's a question of why is it feasible? Is it too far, or are there just not any connections?
There's not the connections.
Yeah, so.
If you have to go on the road, it's not safe to walk or ride a bike on the road.
Yeah, and that's a challenge, but again, communities are doing it and retrofitting to have, even if, say, a bike lane is on the road, there's sometimes these, they look like very flimsy plastic bollards that you can put in the street and separate it. And even that visible barrier between the driving lane and the bike lane can be important for safety. Of course, the ideal, if you could start from scratch, you'd have travel lanes, you'd have a little boulevard, you have a bike lane, another boulevard, and then a sidewalk, but you can't wipe out this. So it is a challenge in an already developed city, but it's worth trying. It's worth trying to make those connections. Because, if you're a biker, I'm a biker, it doesn't take much of a barrier to really be discouraging and say, I just can't bike there. So if you can look for those gaps in the system and connect them, it can make a huge difference with people's it's quality of life, but again, it's connected to economic vitality. That people look for that when they're looking to locate businesses or to come here as an employee. It's like, well, is there a bike system? Can they get around town? And so it really does enhance them.
Is that something that's in this plan? Because I didn't really see that.
Well, again, it has high-level goals to say we want to continue to pursue connections with the plan. And like I said, there's a separate park and trail plan that was developed a few years ago by the city. And so we've incorporated that and reinforcing it with goals here to say, yes, continue to look for those.
And that trail system's great, but it looks like it goes around the outskirts. So like if I live on the east side and I want to go to work on the west side, Owatonna is only 5 miles across. It's easily bikeable, but can't get to the curb.
Yeah, and there is a specific goal about find ways to make that connection east-west. Yeah. Again, this is a high-level plan. It doesn't come down and say we are going to put a trail that is 8 feet wide on Road Street here. No, but it does say that we want to continue to encourage those kinds of connections. Other questions?
Is this something that is anticipated that this will all be done by 2050? Or is this just a statistical idea?
It's a plan. And in my experience, you can predict what might happen it yet. Let's reimagine it. Let's keep working. So it's always a work in progress.
And on this picture, if the east side corridor moves, what happens to that picture?
That picture, well, I would think that wherever, Road Street is a major east-west, and wherever this happens, I think it makes sense to have that intense node around that intersection, rather than just putting it at the intersection of Road Street and a cornfield. It should be Road Street and a major corridor. So I could see that moved out, to make sense. Because again, businesses and developers who are doing this, they're looking for location. And the intersection would make a lot more sense for that. Other questions, comments? If not, we can continue to talk here if you've got questions about any part of this around the boards. But thank you for coming out. And stay tuned. Look at the city's website, and maybe there will be other